This video is brought to you by the high-speed world of Phantom Spark, a precision time trial racing game coming soon to Steam, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, and Xbox. To Steam to wishlist Phantom Spark and try the demo today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Windbreaker podcast. I'm Yahtzee Crowshaw, and I'm joined by Frost.
Hello.
And Marty.
Happy summer solstice.
And oh my goodness, the chat's already popping off on this one, isn't it? Because we thought with the aftermath of the release of the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC for Elden Ring, and it's suddenly mysteriously acquiring a mixed response on Steam, we thought it might be time to talk about how hard is too hard. Because while some people are complaining about the DLC just because of From Software's usual issues with PC ports, there are a fair number of them are also complaining that it's just too hard. A lot of reviewers as well. I should freely admit up front I haven't played it and don't intend to because I value my face and don't want it to get smashed into a wall too much. Where are you two on it?
I've put about 15 hours into it, and I'm really enjoying it. And this is going to be the weirdest thing because I literally just said on it right before we went live that I'm bad at games. I don't think it's too hard. I think the difficulty's fine.
Yeah. See here. I think I've got like 5 hours into it, but I'm also with Marty. I'm kind of coasting, but we'll see what this means depending on playstyle because everyone's playing this game differently. Number one, I think that's the main issue.
Yeah,
a lot of the negative reviews are like, it's too hard for how I want to play. Like, yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah. If you want to play like a coward like this guy and summon as many jolly cooperators as possible, not hard.
I mean, I assume that's the intended thing you're supposed to do.
Yeah, well, and also right off the bat, there was this initial, this is going to be we're going to start off with Shadow of the Erdtree, but obviously this is going to be a larger discussion on sort of the philosophical nature of difficulty in games and everything. But right off the bat, like there is a new mechanic in this game, the Skadu tree fragments that if you don't engage with, you are going to get your ass kicked by everything in this DLC. These are ostensibly collectibles you find throughout the environment, and you level them up at sites of grace, and you pump them into your stats, and they raise your stats in the DLC and DLC alone. So they don't impact you back in the real world of Elden Ring, but they will raise your damage percentage and lower the amount of damage you take as you find more. So in that way, if you do not engage with it, the first boss you come across are going to is probably going to wreck you.
Presumably, that's a measure to compensate for everyone presumably going into the DLC with different levels and builds.
Frost is 100. Frost has literally doubled my level when he entered. Right? Did you enter at like 260 and I entered at 130? So
Jesus, yeah, 259 base.
Yeah.
I'm not NG plus. I do hear that there is scaling for a new game and new game plus beyond that. But mathematically speaking, the strongest you're ever going to be is max level on the base difficulty. So I just went in at 259 at base. Are you at base?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe that's an hour thing because neither of us are having issues, but we're also willing to engage with the with the game in our own cowardly ways.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect I would have issues because, as I've said before, I still haven't finished the base game. I stopped at the fatty and skinny boss fight, and I haven't really felt much motivation to finish off the last few. And part of that is the ongoing struggle with Souls-like fatigue that I've talked about. And I want to get my credentials in order here. I love Dark Souls 1. I'm huge on Dark Souls 1. I've played it a million times. I love Bloodborne. I've played Dark Souls 2 a million times. But I feel like it's somewhere along the line, I kind of got left behind. I feel like the Souls-like genre has been sort of buying into its own hype a little bit with this notion that it has to be super hard. And all it can really do with each new innovation is to up that difficulty. Each game, new challenges, new ways to counter standard player strategies, and it's just gotten harder and harder, and it's just not really that fun for me anymore. And I realize I'm going to get a little bit roasted here, as much as Eurogamer was for dropping their score for the DLC for being admittedly too hard. But there's got to be a point, if you just keep trying to beat your previous difficulty record, that you're going to start leaving players behind. Would that be fair to say?
I think so, considering for this metaphor, I love spicy food. Around 2013, the spice head movement was kicking in. Everything was getting spicy, but people lost the plot. A lot of products started getting just spice extract. The flavor was gone. It was just pure heat, pure pain for no reason. There was why am I putting myself through this? And I'm with you, except I think I dropped off a lot soon, way sooner, where I was like, Dark Souls 1 to me, as much as it is the difficulty, it's the world design, it's the maps, it's the story, it's the world building, it's all of that. And I go, ever since then, we've not matched that. The bosses have gotten cooler, the combat has gotten nice, but do I want to suffer a bland world as much as an ass beating? It's just not worth it for me.
All I know is it feels like there was texture to a lot of the boss fights in Dark Souls 1. I mean, there were boss fights where it was just a dude in armor or two dudes in armor, and there were boss fights where up against big monsters. And every now and again, there'd be something weird like the Moonlight Butterfly, where it does nothing but magic damage, and if you haven't got a ranged weapon, you're kind of fucked. It played things up a bit, and it feels like in Elden Ring, it feels like everything's Manos Father of the Abyss now. Because Manos Father of the Abyss was the boss fight where it felt like they were really starting to counter my preferred strategy of bait their attack, roll behind them, and stab them in the bum. And it feels like everything now has to sort of counter that specific strategy by flailing around with every attack, insta-snapping onto you if you don't dodge at precisely the right frame. And I feel like half the bosses in Elden Ring are flailers. Flaily, 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 flail.
Flailers. I mean, FromSoft does a drippy dude with weird limbs who's kind of moving unnaturally. I mean, one thing since Dark Souls 1 is that their DLCs tend to be kind of how I think some Dave and Busters at 10 p.m. become adults only, 21 and over.
Sure.
That's what the DLC to me feels like. The DLC feels like, okay, so if these Soulsborne games are only for a certain audience, then the DLC even segments that audience a little bit. And that's even going into we saw the stats last week of only a quarter of the people beat Moog, which is what is needed to enter the DLC. And it's a completely optional area that I missed on my first playthrough of the game. So,
well, it was pretty hard to find the DLC in the original Dark Souls, although I played that game sort of after the fact. I got into that game sort of after the fact, so it was already well documented by then.
Yeah.
But you gotta what do you gotta do? You gotta go to the lake, you gotta defeat the Hydra, you gotta get to the Duke's Archives, which is past the getting the Lord Vessel. Mm-hmm. Kill one specific enemy to get one weird unspecific item. And then know to go back to the lake and look for the weird portal.
And then a big old hand grabs you. So you've been doing it for a long time. Has there ever been another game or series where the conversation around it has been 90% its difficulty?
Well,
or a game, I guess, of even caliber, I guess.
more in retro times, I guess. That was always the
Yeah.
conversation around games like Battletoads and some of the Ninja Gaidens.
A lot of NES games, honestly, were just, I mean, those
Yeah.
arcade games were kind of built, we've talked about that, built around your failure and then paying money to keep going.
I mean, part of why everyone appreciated the Souls-like genre is that there was a feeling that difficulty had dropped off in recent games. That they were all turning into Ghost Train rides and Uncharted's and Half-Lives, where you just walk down a corridor, getting hit by like one challenge in a nice orderly queue. So it was innovative when Demon Souls came out and was actually difficult again. It felt like difficult in a appreciably retro way.
Yeah. And it didn't have, some of those games, like a game like The Last of Us, you can make as easy or as difficult as you want. You could play it on story mode, which I did, and I only died 3 times on story mode. And let me tell you, 3 humbling deaths. Or you could have like the crazy grounded permadeath mode if you really want to be sadistic and possibly lose 12 hours of progress. Whereas I guess this
I was amongst those who appreciated, because you know how down I am on Ghost Train rides. I appreciated some challenge getting back into things. I appreciated the process of fighting a boss a few times, recognizing their patterns, learning the correct response to each pattern, and etc. But now it's gotten a little bit silly.
It's interesting because it's as much cultural and social as anything else. Because it's playing Dark Souls 1 again and a little bit of 3 to get back into the mood for Elden Ring. I went, holy cow, the quality of life between Dark Souls 1 and 3 is just nothing compared to Elden Ring. It's like, oh, the bonfire's right in front of the bloody door, or there's a stake of America, so that I can respawn here. Whereas the other one, I nearly tapped out at the Capra Demon again because I was like, I don't want to run back. I don't want to do these run backs, I almost wonder, as much as I still love Dark Souls 1 now, has our perception changed to the point where if Dark Souls 1 released now, not under FromSoft's name, would people love it as much? Me, I think I'd still love the map. The map is great and everything, and I go, God, some of these bosses are stupid the way that it's designed in that sense. So as much as I loved it for it being so different from the Ghost Train rides, are we just kind of getting tired?
I would think that even all that aside, the boss fights in Dark Souls aren't as hard as they. If you were playing Dark Souls and new and never played it before now, the boss fights wouldn't be as hard as you'd find the boss fights in Elden Ring playing anew.
Oh,
and the reason why I say that is because obviously I've considered that. Obviously, I'm a big Dark Souls fan. I've played it a million times, and Dark Souls feels pretty easy to me now. I know all the boss's patterns. I know all the secret techniques. But then the Demon Souls remake came out on PS5, and which I hadn't played through before. But having the experience of Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, I found Demon Souls astonishingly easy. I even like the big like tentpole boss fight against the fake king in like the first area. I just like sailed through that largely by baiting his attack, rolling behind him, and stabbing him in the bum.
Classic bum stabs.
So it does feel like there has been an objective increase in difficulty.
I mean, you say the objective part, but then every time I feel like 2 people talk about their Elden Ring experience, they have, and I guess Souls games in general, people have different walls. Like there are a few shared walls. I feel like Ornstein and Smough were like shared walls in the original game. But
let's go into that.
We were just talking about the Godskin duo. And Yahtzee, you said you tapped out there. That is far and away the boss I spent the most time at in the game. Like it is both times I played it. I'm like, these guys are so fucking hard. And Frost was like, it was easy. When I played with Jack, he first timed it. Like it's a case by case basis.
You know what killed me the most in Elden Ring? The fucking tree. Getting down to Melania, whatever her name was, killed me more than actually fighting her. In this one as well, because it takes almost 500,000 souls to actually level me up. I have lost near 3 million souls because I fall off of things more so than anything I'm actually fighting. So like that's where my difficulty is, and the moments where I go, I kind of don't want to keep going.
I think we need to start taxing the rich, tax the level 260s.
I'm glad you brought up Ornstein and Smough because I feel like there's a significant reason why that's a bit of a difficulty wall for a lot of players, for the simple reason that it's 2 guys, and And Dark Souls combat is basically designed for one-on-one dueling.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're ever fighting more than one dude at a time, if people are blindsiding you, coming up on your back, then you're kind of fucked. That's always like how it's been.
Yeah, and even
with
stuff like the Bell Gargoyles is based around,
Yeah.
try to kill this one as quickly as possible before the second one comes into the ring.
With every boss fight, the strategy of learning their patterns and learning the correct response to each pattern is completely thrown on its head when there's another dude there who you have to simultaneously watch out for, because you might have the opportunity to fight one guy, but then there's this other guy coming up on you, and all your strategies are kind of in the bin. I also want to say that Ornstein and Smaug is the only boss fight in Dark Souls 1. Feel free to correct me on this. I'm racking my brains because I feel like I must be wrong here. But it's the only boss fight in Dark Souls 1 where after you whittle the health bar down, they come back with another full health bar.
Like the only kind of phase 2. Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, by memory, I think that might be the only one. At least in the first game. That became I think that became a pretty standard thing going forward.
It's a standard thing, and it's what
goddamn chimp in Sekiro. You cut his head off, and he's like, "I'm still good."
Oh God, that poor Amy.
It's become one of my pet hates as I struggle with Souls-like fatigue. Because I've been playing 9 Souls recently, and I've been enjoying that much as I enjoyed Another Crab's Treasure, because it felt like it wasn't just trying to one up the entire genre with new, more challenging fights. And I was getting through it quite happily. But then I've run into this one boss fight that's been kind of a wall for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's the lady in the dream world. I don't know if anyone's played 9 Souls. You go into this sort of virtual dream world where this like the mind of this one lady is hanging out. And you get through her first phase, easy peasy. She's not that hard if you've like mastered the parry and the talisman attacks. But then you get her health down, curtain goes down, curtain goes up. Oh, she's got another health bar full to the brim. And now there's 3 of her. So you got to deal with that. And now, like, not every time, it's the old chestnut where not everything you attack is the real boss, and you have to keep hitting them to find out which one's the real boss. So that was a lot harder. Right? It was doing a lot more damage. She was taking a lot more damage. And then I finally got that through and went, oh, thank goodness. I got through the second phase. And then what do you know? Fucking third phase. Third phase with this one boss that didn't even feel like a pivotal story boss. Just pulls out a fucking third phase where now there's fucking 6 of her. And suddenly you're having to like fend off attacks from her copies while she's hitting you with her standard attack. Yes, that's the very one. Thank you, Eric. And it's just become a big wall for me because now I have to sort of like grind through the first 2 stages every time just to get to the third phase so I can start to learn the responses to her new attacks.
And is this a boss that's just on the main path? This isn't like an optional boss, right? This is just
you doing this to yourself, or
I don't know if it is like optional. It feels like she's currently the only thing I can do at this point.
Mm-hmm. I just mentioned that because that's something I've grown like more and more fond of in games. I think we talked about this when we talked about Animal Well, but games that kind of have natural off ramps of Animal Wells, where it's like, oh, you can after whatever 6 hours and you see the credits, you can choose to be done or you can keep going, and then after you reach another milestone, you could choose to be done or keep going. And I feel like Hollow Knight had a similar thing, and Hollow Knight's first exit I turned off at because I was like, ooh, I think I might be tapped out here. And then everything past that, the DLC and everything, I've only like experienced by watching other people do it and watching essays and full playthroughs, and I'm like, this looks fucking rad. This is just too much for me at this point in my life. Like, I think I've just like, as I've gotten older, I just have less time to be like, okay, I'm going to devote my full time to getting good at this thing in the same way I could when I was a kid.
Well, I just wanted to make it a rule that if you're going to have multiple stages, then you have to warn us up front.
Yes.
Because what's the point of a fucking health bar if getting it all done doesn't mean you're done? That's the whole point. That's so we know we're done.
I'm with it, diegetically speaking. If you talk to a random NPC and they allude to like a reincarnation of of the thing, or something that through the story it gives you the answer. That's what I liked about Dark Souls 1. A lot of people say like, oh, you end up cheesing things and whatnot, but there was a lot of stuff that if you had the knowledge, you with your brain could overcome the challenge. Like the Capra Demon, absolute bastard, you could still stand outside the door and throw fire bombs over and deal with at least the dogs, but you could kill him. Now, if From Software didn't want you to, they could just put a ceiling on that thing, right? But they allowed you. The first big bastard that comes down from the church, you can see him as you're opening the door. You can look up and he's right there, right? So like no crazy surprises. The first stone that as you're going up the stairs in the tutorial area, it runs you over. If you just hug that wall, if you just keep walking, it'll miss you, right? It's very like, yeah, I did hurt you, but also it's nothing that's gonna brutalize you, and laugh about it, learn about it. It felt like they were wanting to teach you at the start. Nowadays, I feel like a lot of these Souls games are sort of like, oh, you should know by now. You should know what to expect by now, right? I kind of almost miss that like back and forth that they would have. It would be cool to have an NPC just going, it's like, oh, that's a rare one. That one, just keeps coming back for some reason. 3 times the head was chopped off, and now you're like, oh, 3 phases, eh? Something like that. I want them to be more involved with it.
How
what would be kind of cool is if there was a system for sort of gathering intelligence on a boss before you fought them.
Like Assassin's
So you
Creed.
could, like Assassin's Creed. So you could at least be prepared to watch out for certain things you've been warned about. Like saying, remember, if they start doing such and such a thing, then get ready to do a big roll. Just as you see their arm twitch. And you can do that diegetically. You can do
where you can
make
like
that
do
fun
things beforehand to even like getting the Moog shackle or whatever that you can use against Moog.
That's like Dark Souls 2, was it?
With the poison room where you can like
poison and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of the things I liked about Nine Souls up until the where I hit the wall where I'm currently at was that there's another boss fight with 2 stages just before this. But you can pick up an item that is like a poison that counteracts genetic engineering or something. And you can, if you go back to your home base, you can sell it as like a vendor trash item just to get money. Yep. But I was suspicious. I was like, this seems suspicious that it would be described as having these specific properties when I know I'm about to fight a guy who's genetically enhanced.
Yeah.
And sure enough, when you get to that boss fight, there's like a thing just after the door. Before you wake him up, that's like, hey, do you want to stick that thing you found in here? And it like sort of upsets his genetics, so he keeps having to pause the fight and throw up.
That's fun.
And that's cool. I like that.
And it makes the fight easier.
It's very.
Although you still have to learn. You still have to learn his patterns. It just means you get a little breather every now and again.
Like it's Assassin's Creed, very Batman, very Witcher, isn't it? Like finding all the information, get smart about the fight, and then go in, sort of thing. Now, it can be argued that that's kind of the whole point of the signs, right? There's like great tits ahead or whatever. Maybe they're the ones that should be warning me instead of telling me about the tits that there's a 3rd bar. But what can you do there?
I talked about this on my stream last night, but I came across my favorite sign in the DLC, and it's I made my way like down through this pit, and I entered a room, and there was a ladder, and on the ground it just said "Snake, oh snake" ahead. And I was like, oh, God damn it, there's going to be like a snake at the top of this ladder. And so I'm climbing up and I'm being like very careful. And I'm 30 seconds into the ladder and I'm like, oh, this is a snake eater thing. And then I rode back down just to like give the note a thumbs up because I was like, hell yeah, that is a very good goof. And then you climb the ladder. It was the longest fucking ladder. And it was really good. No snakes at the top.
I love it. As there was a goof I saw on Twitter where it was first message, then explosion, because everyone who was stopping to read it was getting run over by an explosive barrel.
Like the Looney Tunes shit. That's like very funny. Yeah.
The whole messages thing and the ability to summon dudes makes me think that Dark Souls and Elden Ring are designed with summoning help in mind. They were always designed to be sort of experienced communally. That's why so much of it is obscure and hard to figure out. Yeah. But there's a tendency in the audience now that, Get Good is sort of like this cultural thing to sort of create this expectation that you're supposed to be able to do it by yourself. Because there've been people like saying that if you If you summon, then you haven't beaten it for realsies.
It just means I have a massive cock.
Yeah, that's it's the problem is it's reached a point of popularity to where it has no identity. Like the fan base has no identity anymore, right?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with Star Wars, with anything. When it becomes big enough, it's like you can say, "Oh, I'm a FromSoft fan." That doesn't mean anything anymore. I'm a FromSoft fan, but I play the games relatively casual. Like I beat all the games Sekiro. I feel like I play them casually and I like digging into the lore. Then there's other people who are like, I'm on New Game Plus 9 and I play only naked soup ladle, and that's how I get through that game. And so we're both fans of this, but like there's no it's just reached a point where there's no general consensus. And this was something I've been expecting for a while, and we're starting to see a little bit of the backlash now, and I'm just curious where it goes from here.
Well, it's my worry. It's my worry that From Software sort of internalized this notion that they make the hard games, and I feel like there was much more to Dark Souls than that. Yeah. But the cultural understanding is, that's that game that's really hard, and they just feel like they have to keep, living up to that reputation. It's like the comedian who's well known for the one catchphrase gag.
Sure.
That they did in the 80s, and they wheel them onto chat shows, and they say their catchphrase, and then they bugger off again. That's From Software now. It's like, hey,
prepare to die. Yeah,
it's even harder than the last one. It's got 5,000 more hit points than the last boss that had the most hit points. Fucking Orphan of Kos or whatever it was.
Have you ever has this happened with a genre or a series with you before, where you've sort of genre fatigue or series fatigue or anything like that? Either of you?
I don't know.
I think there are certainly games that have sort of bought into their own hype in that way, in that they've tried to really play up what they're best known for. I think Suda51 might have suffered from that. He sort of gained a reputation as the guy who makes the weird post-punk games, so he's tried to play that up a bit. Like I remember Shadows of the Damned was sold as a Suda51 trip, implying that it would have his usual madcap random energy, and and really that game was more Shinji Mikami's baby, if you ask me. So I do, yeah.
It's gonna be weird, so hear me out. I have gone through many things where I'll be a fan of something, and not to say that it just sounds hipstery. This is where we're gonna run with it, and then we'll figure out a name for me at the end. Like Christopher Nolan, love his older work, love his style, love what he puts on offer. Very much like experience-y, right? And he lacks in, say, sometimes storytelling. Definitely women's perspective. Okay, and then you get big Oppenheimer. Now the things that we didn't care for it because that's not why.
I'm sorry. Are you saying Christopher Nolan only got big with Oppenheimer?
No. I'm saying that there's a point where eventually, your stardom brings in everyone, and now everyone has to say. These are the people that before weren't watching you, and now they're here. Same thing with why Elden Ring at the start. A lot of people came to it not knowing it was a Souls-like, because they don't know From Software. They're just like, oh, what's that Elden Ring thing? Oh, cool.
Or you saw George R.R. Martin's name in the credits.
Exactly. How many people are playing? How many people are playing this DLC not knowing that? I mean, historically speaking, the DLCs kind of spank you, and
the gag with From Software games is that this always happens. From Software games launches are always big. They've got that huge dedicated fan base, and all the normos hear the guys saying, "Hey, this game's going to be great. It's From Software. They make great games. They made Dark Souls." So they've got their reputation for making great games. So the normos come along and go, "Oh, well, I guess I'll try out this game."
Yeah, there you
that
go.
Everyone says is so good, and then they get spanked over a vaulting horse. And the game, there's always this early launch backlash against it for high difficulty, which we're seeing now with the DLC. But that's always happened, I think. But I'm just saying, I feel like it's gotten too far because I'm a Souls fan, and it's gotten too much for me.
Do you think that's just a natural, you've grown
old?
You've been playing these games? Yeah, I don't know. You've been playing these games for 12, 13 years, and you're just I don't know. If you eat the same meal for 12 years straight, you're gonna want something else. And not they don't make games that rapidly. They've released whatever 7, 8 main games since Demon's Souls. But I'm just wondering if that's just a natural. Certain people tap out at a certain point, and it's one of those "it's not you, it's me" thing.
Sure. I mean, I just prescribe myself to being a Miyazaki fan more so than just Souls games in general. Everyone's like, oh, these are the games that are S tier, A tier. To me, it's like Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. Those are the three. Anything after that is just a bit lesser. So as much as it is fatigue, it's just like, were they all that great to begin with? And not in a retroactive sense, meaning as like, I think at a certain point, a fan does have to look inside and go, why did I like it? What did I like? Or did you only like it for the difficulty? If so,
Well,
this
no.
might be your reckoning,
Well, the difficulty was certainly part of it because the sense of relief and satisfaction you get from finally beating the boss is that's what you're there for. That's the hit. That's the high. But at some point, the frustration getting there just wasn't worth it. You got to like keep the player on a sort of knife edge balance. You got to keep them sort of motivated to keep trying without breaking their spirit. And my spirit's broken.
Exactly.
I'll never be the same again.
Hard to get up nowadays. Like I am the kind of person who will question and go, what is it that I like about hard games, to the point where I will seek out some of the hardest games, not to fulfill them, but to fulfill myself. And then I go, okay, there's actually an art to being difficult, enjoyable, and making me want to keep going to it.
Sure.
Dark Souls games, From Software, whatever they're called, they're not the hardest games. They are probably the most popular, difficult games, right? But that's the conversation always just goes straight to difficulty. Why not talk about there's strange openings of some bosses? What about the lack of variety? Like my early complaint right now, the map feels really sparse. I'm out here traveling, exploring. There's nothing in these woods. I open a chest that's not a mimic, and there's
especially I agree with you there, especially compared to core Elden Ring. Again, I haven't seen the entirety of the map, but I found 3 fragments, and it just feels like I'll go through an area and be like, it feels like there should have been something here. Like there are fewer catacombs, fewer mines, fewer like little things. Which I don't want to. Well, I'm shocked we've gone 31 minutes and I haven't brought up Zelda yet. But Zelda does a thing where every time I'm like, that looks neat, and I go there and there is something neat there, and maybe it's just a little Korok seed, but there's something for my troubles.
Difficulty crosses the line for me when it feels like I'm losing because of randomness and not because I haven't quite had enough practice. And that kind of feels like the problem. Well, I haven't tried it too many times, but the third phase in that 9 Souls boss fight I was talking about, because now you're suddenly dealing with multiple opponents who are all out of sync with each other. So it's hard to be able to respond to attacks in the way you've sort of been training yourself. And when a boss fight, like in Elden Ring, say they'll have a boss have an attack that just throws 500 missiles that randomly land around you, and whether or not you get hit by one or not is sort of up to a roll of the dice. That feels like where it's taking the piss. Where difficulty is taking the piss.
How does 9 Souls have difficulty options in the menu? Can you put it on easy, or is it just it is what it is?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember difficulty settings.
I'm just curious, both of you, how, if a game has difficulty sliders, if it has options, if it has, whether it's something as simple as easy, medium, hard, or something as granular as percentages for your own damage you give, damage you receive. Yeah, this thing. So if you hit a point in the game that's giving you trouble, do you have any qualms with just changing the difficulty? Because I do not anymore. The second, if I'm hitting something where I'm like, oh, this is going to be something that's going to take me a little too long, I'm just going to change the difficulty down. And I don't get any fucking the get good crowd can come, and I'm like, that's totally fine. This is not what I'm here for. I'm not here for personal achievements in the games. I am here to enjoy myself while experiencing a story or experiencing what these people have created.
Okay, the chat's letting us know 9 Souls does have a story mode, but that's not what I want. That's not what I want. And that's probably why I don't remember it, because if I see story mode and standard mode, I'm just going to go standard mode, obviously. Because I'm not here for no challenge whatsoever. I want some challenge. That's part of the fun.
But for this boss, are you just going to quit the game because you're frustrated with this boss, or would you put it down to a story mode, get through the boss, and just move past it? There's puzzles in The Last of Us Part 2 to where you could just any puzzle, you could just open up a menu, you just go to skip puzzle. There was one puzzle where I'm like, I don't know what you want from me. I can't figure this out. I just skipped the puzzle and I was done with it. And I was like, this is great.
I feel like I'm happy to do that if I'm like trying to get through a game for work.
Sure.
But I'm sort of hesitant to do it if I'm just playing a game for my own amusement because it feels like not so much giving up. It feels like breaking immersion, sort of ruining my attachment to the internal fiction of the game. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like I had to like dip out of the ghost train and say, "Hey, sorry, this ghost train's a bit scary. Could you tone it down a bit?" And then the rest of the ghost train's never going to have the same effect because you've had to dip out.
Is this a ghost train with actual ghosts, or is this the genre of games you're talking about?
I mean,
I'm talking about ghost
I'm
talking about actual literal ghost trains now. So if you have to duck out of the ghost train and ask them to tone down the scary ghosts, then there's you're going to feel humiliated. You're not going to feel like you're in the ghost train anymore.
I don't know. It's just okay. Again, I feel I'm going to be the one that gets roasted today. Should have been Yachts.
Don't worry, we'll all get roasted.
My sense of pride is not based in the games. Like, he tapped out. He used a mimic. It's like I don't care.
Yeah,
That's
I don't.
Now, what
the game doesn't judge. The game doesn't judge, but maybe I do.
Well, that's on you. That's
myself.
like Catholic guilt. Like whenever I get something like kind of off base in my writing, because I care more about that than the game. That's when I'm like flagellating. Absolute like hot showers. I'm stupid. I'm stupid.
Shame,
like that.
Shame.
Yeah, shame. Absolute shame. That's what gets me nowadays. More so than like, I used the mimic tears.
Yeah.
My tears. So it's a sense of like where is your pride? And I feel like for a lot of gamers, maybe that sense of pride does come through gaming. It is escapism, right? It's not to paint them as some losers who have never achieved anything in real life, but again, introspection. Right. Why are you placing so much weight?
Especially for someone like me who is a professional game reviewer and has been playing games since I was a child. I've got to ask myself, if I can't beat this, who can? I mean, I am ostensibly an expert in my chosen field, or at least that's what I feel like people expect of me.
I thought you were a narrative specialist, though.
Yeah, but we're not even we're not even in the upper end of who's good at games at this company. I'm speaking of me and Yahtzee. Frost, you're probably in the upper third, but I don't know, Casey, Nick, they're better at games than me. That's fine. It doesn't impact writing at all.
Also, I should specify interactive narrative specialist, and sometimes challenge can be part of interactive narrative, and that's why I've appreciated it in games like Dark Souls.
Do you think it's failed you then from the interactive narrative aspect? Because now it's like the old spice heads of like, is it now just spicy for the sake of spice, and they've failed the narrative side, interactive narrative side?
I suppose it probably has. I mean, I don't really have much understanding of who the hell I'm fighting in Elden Ring and why. I mean,
exactly. Whereas before you even mentioned like the butterfly, the Capra demon, even though that was a POS fight, it still added to the story, did it not?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, I sort of understand that I'm in a sort of an undead world. There's this, I mean, even on the base level, I understand why there's this just one demon hanging around in this undead city. It's as part of a symbol of sort of the corruption that the city's undergone.
Well, he's got the key. He's defending his mother. And I don't know why he's in that closet specifically, but it's the son protecting his mother. I get that. It feels like in Elden Ring, maybe I've just need to watch more Vadi videos to try and figure out why exactly was the hippo there,
Yeah.
From Software, I think still does a good job of sort of still providing a bit of a diegetic air to it all. I feel a lot of Souls-likes really lack that, and it has sort of just gone down to nice world that loops back into itself and big boss fight.
I mean, I keep thinking about Thymesia, which was an indie Souls-like I was playing not too long ago, which was clearly like trying to eat Bloodborne's lunch. And I got to like the first boss that was like this magic man with a top hat, and I beat him I got through his first stage, got through his second stage, third stage, and I was like, no, bad game, stop playing now. And that game really felt like it wasn't really explaining what the hell I was doing or what I was there.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm curious. I guess I've been curious for a while of like what do they do next? Because like in some interviews this last week, Miyazaki has talked about how he has always wanted to make a traditional turn-based JRPG, And I'm like, my God, I would love nothing more than to see like what that means from him. And like FromSoft is far and away a better developer than they've ever been. I think arguably they used to be a more interesting developer, and I know you hate that word interesting, but they just used to be a more varied developer. They would dabble in true survival horror. They would dabble in sort of family friendly puzzle games. They would dabble
Yeah,
in
remember Ninja Blade?
yeah,
Nobody else
Ninja
does.
Blade and Cookies and Cream and Echo Knight and Kingsfield and Lost Kingdoms and Otogi. Like there was kind of a breadth to their portfolio that is now um games that feel like different flavor of the same thing. Like it's no longer a restaurant, it's an ice cream shop. It's got 31 flavors, but it's all ice cream. And I would kind of like to see what else is on the menu, even though I really like their ice cream. Shout out to Otogi.
Well, on that note, perhaps it's way past the point we should start doing super chats because there's been a lot of them. There's a lot of opinions on this matter.
I'll be here a while. Let's go.
Yeah, we should start hammering through them. Dr. Theo, member for 5 months, a tip jar, and then gives us another $5 and says, I think one part is expectations. Imagine buying a silly N64 type platformer only to blindside you with the hardest challenges in the market. Well,
I think this is part of a 3-part series. I think this is a 3-part series. You need to read his next message and then the message after that.
All right, his next message says, you can always just, put all of this in one super chat and give us $15 in that super chat, Dr. Theo. That's an option.
Maybe cheaper. Maybe you save $5.
Meanwhile, Shipwreck64 always advertised itself as an ARG, so you go into it knowing it's going to have ARG level puzzles. And then Dr. Theo says, I suppose there can be a cool way to blindside the player with something different, but for that to work, you basically have to develop 2 games.
So Shipwreck 64 is that's like a Shyamalan twist game where it's it bills itself as it was like a lost 64-bit platformer that came out, but they had to pull because it had some spookiness, behind the development and behind the actual game itself. Which that's like a tough thing when we talk about like Doki Doki Literature Club or Frog Fractions or any game like that. It's like, it's hard to recommend it to people without telling them that there is a twist to it, that it is more than meets the eyes.
Yeah. Real quick.
Yeah. Doki Doki Literature Club springs to mind.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. Expectations. Marty, is this different from what you were expecting? It doesn't feel not par for the course. This feels very like, this is from software. This feels spot on,
Well, and this feels like Elden Ring too, where I got to the first 2 bosses and I was like, oh, they're kicking the shit out of me. I better go and explore. And then when I was like, oh, these Erdtree things, like this is what the real leveling up is. Like these are genuinely more important than what my character level is. And so in the same way in the main game, leveling up my character felt like the way, I'll come back when I'm 10 levels higher and maybe have some cooler gear. When I hit those first 2 bosses, I was like, oh, well, let me actually explore this world, find these things, upgrade this, and revisit them. And then when I revisited them, the jail guard right at the beginning wasn't a problem for me. And so, but that is also where that problem that we just talked about came from. Of I'm exploring the world, I like finding these things, but I'm like, ooh, I wish there was a little bit more here. I wish there was like a little bit more to like pique my interest and reward my curiosity for poking around different corners of the world.
Yeah. So much is like, is it too hard? Is it not hard enough? As far as Dr. Theo's questioning of expectations, this is pretty on par with what I was expecting at the very least. So if anyone feels blindsided from this, they might not just know what From Software's about, what Miyazaki's about. So
yeah, I mean, it feels weird to say you're blindsided by it if you have to get all the way to Moog before you can unlock the DLC.
Yeah, just getting through, like,
but I think it was the problem of people being like, oh, I have my character that I've curated for hundreds of hours in the main game and I can one-shot anything. But then you enter this DLC and there is that flattening out equalizer kind of the Erdtree fragments. And so I think that's where...
How did you feel when you started the extra dungeon in Persona 4 Golden, where they take away all your shit and your stats right at the start?
I actually liked that because I played Persona 4 Golden after Persona 5, and so by that point, I felt like I was like, oh, I'm sleepwalking through these battles, and so finally throwing a dungeon at me to where I had to think, that made me feel good. Felt like an SMT dungeon.
Yeah, I appreciated it. I mean, feels like every Persona game I played, combat gets kind of piss easy by the end.
Yeah.
Gildon Yetage gives $5 and says, games are meant to be played. I'm insulted if a game is so easy it plays itself, but if their best efforts are futile, then that too is railroading.
Games are meant to be played. Yes, but who? This is not to spoil later writing. Is I don't think the inept should limit our liberties, but also they shouldn't be policed by the most callous of us. So where
Yeah.
is that
Right.
line of like,
Yeah.
oh, this is hard. It's like, yeah, but this person's also just not very capable. Versus
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
it's nothing. Throws out cigar, missing a leg.
like on the one,
Nah.
so on the one hand, the no child left behind policy drags the rest of the school system down.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you can't treat everyone like they're in the accelerated program.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, where is that line there? And Miyazaki's always from software. No, the whole company has chosen to cater to a very specific sort of audience. So you almost have to wonder if you're even part of that audience. Again, with like Oppenheimer, or are you part of Nolan's audience that he caters to?
Ooh, it's catered to an audience, but I think they also have done a great job of like getting people into their cult, right? Like, I don't mean that pejoratively. I know that sounded pejorative, but like, there are plenty of people I know personally who have hit that point where they're like, oh, I get it now. Like, I can see the code. And they went from someone who was relatively casual with these games to like, I've met it on its terms and I'm finally speaking its language. And now I have quote unquote got good.
Yeah, I had
and
that
so-
moment the first time I really got into Dark Souls. Like previously, it was sort of lost on me, but then like I watched some nice Let's Plays of it, learned a bit more about the lore, gave it another chance, and I think specifically it was the gargoyle fight. I got through the gargoyle fight, and then I was like, I get it now.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a nice,
But
nice
anyway,
feeling that not a lot of games have.
Let's move on quickly, because as I say, there's a lot of these. Spicy.bp gives $2, says, people upset that a hard game they bought is hard. Oh, here they come. Here come the roasters.
The roasters, the spicy dots.
Yeah. Well, $2 per roast. That seems fair to me.
For one thing, though, I do think we get hung up a little bit too much on like difficulty, like you said with that boss with the 3 phases, right? Is it hard in itself? Is it the run to it? Is it the starting over? Is it the learning? I think a lot of things can contribute to something being difficult. Like I said, like I keep saying, people are saying that a lot of the bosses rush the door. And some people's strat is like to get prepped, summon the mimic, do the buffs, all that kind of stuff. But like the blasted hippo will come knocking straight at the door, So
Fucking Capra Demon always rushed the door with his 2 doggy friends.
yeah, you got to run in and run up straight to that ledge, So, but also to the grandest point, something you said in Cuphead, is it's easy to complain while you're getting your ass beat. And so you almost have to wonder, how many of these are just straight up, I rage quit and I had to blow off steam somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said the designer has to walk a fine line. Gotta keep them frustrated so they want to like teach this boss a lesson, but you can't frustrate them so much they give up.
Well, it's funny because it's the same. People are always like, you need to take pre-release reviews with a grain of salt because the way they're playing a game is very different than anyone else. They're like, oh, this is a 75-hour game that I need to beat in 10 days, and so I need to play it nonstop and keep bashing my head against the wall. In the same way, anyone who's made a definitive statement about this game 72 hours after it came out is doing the same thing, right? Is like, you're not sitting with your thoughts. You're not really like collecting and thinking about how you feel. And like Frost said, like getting out of, not being a prisoner of the moment of either something that's giving you hype or something that's causing you a pain in the ass.
Tommy Salty, a member for 7 months in tip jar. Thank you very much.
Hey,
Wesley Thomas. Wesley Thomas gives 5 Canadian and says all games require you to get good. The question is, when do you get good, and what does good look like? Well, now we're just arguing semantics.
Yeah, I played Banana Game. Don't take much. Granted, I think like 20% of people played Banana Game don't have the only achievement, which is to click the banana. So
that's not true. All games need you to get good. I played Hellblade 2 on the easiest difficulty, and I was at no point ever good at that combat.
I don't think anyone is.
No.
Still, you
It
have
does
to learn.
look cool when I kill a guy and I throw his body into someone else, and the next guy comes. Like, I didn't have anything to do with that. I still think it's cool.
You were still working off a skill baseline. Like old people don't understand how the 2 analog stick setup works.
This is true.
You gotta get good at. You gotta get good at using 2 analog sticks.
I mean, we're starting to see a lot of no conflict games. Tiny Glade, huge during the next fest.
Yeah.
No conflict in that. You're just making a cottage.
Is
You know
that
what
an
they should do?
overcorrection, do you think?
I do think so. Yes, I think the trends are always correcting themselves. I think Dark Souls was in
Yeah.
retaliation to the Ghost Train rides, and now we're kind of like I want a little aftercare. Like 9 Souls and another Crab's Treasure, both accessibility options
Yeah,
for
there you go.
Souls likes. You know,
I like another Crab's Treasure. I've played it without even needing to use the gun or anything because it was fun and had an interesting story, but it didn't feel the need to top itself challenge-wise. Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, didn't games like Devil May Cry have a feature where you unlock harder modes and something that Yahtzee defended where more challenge and content is good? Yeah, I don't know if you're phrasing that like it's a gotcha, Alex Armstrong, but yeah, some people
I think you just
appreciate some people appreciate having unlocking an extra difficulty after they've mastered the previous game so they can enjoy the game again with fresh challenge. Me, I've never really been into that sort of thing. If I replay a game, it'll be like 6 months down the line and playing it the exact same difficulty I played it on before.
There's a handful of games where you need to unlock easy mode, which I think is like
Devil May Cry
offensive.
was one of the first to do that. If you die too many times, they unlock easy mode for you, which is the first case of having to totally humiliate yourself in order to get through the game.
That is one thing, but like there was a Pocky and Rocky Remastered, which is an old remaster of an old Super Nintendo game, came out, and the game is hard as nails, but you need to accumulate enough currency to buy easy mode. And so, but I'm like, why is easy mode not just there? Like, what are we doing?
Technically, aren't a lot of games essentially you've played by the end of the game, you are the strongest you will be, stronger than everything else. It is now easy mode. A lot of Metroidvanias at least do that. Like Hollow Knight, by the end of it, you're in easy mode now. Yeah.
I've always said it's part of the fun to be able to go back to the starting area and kick the shit out of the things that used to be a problem.
Hell yeah.
Smice Audio gives $5 and says, here's a bit of extra money. Now you can choose to say something funny. I'm very tired.
Oh, Smice, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you for this lovely money that's currently falling on me. Oh, lovely. I shall catch it all and spend it on treats. Robo-Knob the Snob gives €5 and says, got nothing original to say about this. Well, that didn't stop most people, Robo-Knob the Snob. So I'll just say that you look positively glowing today, Yachts Queen, some might say.
Yachts Queen?
Okay.
Yeah,
I did trim my beard recently.
That was very good.
Yorth87 gives 50 Danish kroner and says, Cyberpunk 2077 DLC had a mid-boss fight that almost made me bite the desk in frustration. Had to stop, think, and respec my car. Very happy when finally beat it.
That too, you can respec, can't you? So
can you in Elden Ring?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Marvel
go to
tier.
The moon cow that you didn't beat.
Right.
The moon cow.
Oh, no, I did beat her in the end. As I said, I got as far as fatty and skinny before I dropped off.
Oh, that's I
remember going back to Hogwarts and she had that she was alive and being nice and weird all of a sudden.
When I wasn't reading the super chat when you said it, and you said respect my car, and I didn't realize it was short for character, and I thought like, what? You had to like respect your car had stats, and there was a boss in Cyberpunk.
That's what Elden Ring needed. Fucking convertible. Fucking like Chevy. Just drive along drive through the scenery with fucking spikes on your bumper or something.
Don't give them ideas. They'll give Torrent DLC armor. Don't.
The Stalin DLRP gives $5 and says, it honestly feels like the bosses in Shadows are for a different game entirely. So many are just beyond too aggressive for your movement and stam.
They're just they are
maybe you should respec your build.
Oh,
the Stalin DLRP.
Yeah, if you do kind of want like some slow going boys, so they're very aggressive. Yeah, they are rather aggressive. I could see like that being a very valid critique of it all. The only slow going one is what, the Wicker Man right at the start. God,
the Wicker Man.
Per Bukta Herr der Dunkelheit gives €5 and says, community is also a factor. If one just says good and the other helps you, I know which I'd stamp as too hard and move on and which I could beat.
Do you think they're being held hostage by the internet? Because like in 2011, when Dark Souls came through, the internet was not nearly as ubiquitous as it is now. We did not know what to expect. We didn't know the tricks. Now we have over a decade of Souls-like experience, internet experience. This is just like he's just fighting for his life to make a spicy game. Because what would be worse if everyone said this game's too hard or this game's too easy, way too easy?
Well, there's plenty of examples on both sides of the spectrum coming out. Like Still Wakes the Deep came out recently, and I thought that game was way too easy because it's kind of a.
But they don't have the reputation.
Kind of a walking simmy affair.
Heard about that.
But isn't it supposed to be a walking sim?
I guess. Well, there are gameplay sections that do your standard sort of walking sim horror game where you have to avoid the thing and get out of the room without the thing spotting you.
Gotcha.
Sort of standard blooper team shit, really.
Right.
Oh, you don't say that about them. Come on. Be nice.
Oh gosh. All right, we'll call it standard frictional games shit as well.
Okay, good.
All right. Bubba's Big Blast, member for 4 months in the Green Gang, says the difficulty of Stalker also made it stand out. In Stalker, you had a quick save, Bubba's Big Blast. I think.
I'm still laughing at Bubba's Big Blast.
Bubba's Big Blast.
It's a good name. I never played the Stalker games.
It looks like they got jump scares. I'm a timid boy.
Oh, I like jump scares.
I've played a couple. I don't think I've ever really got Stalker.
I got Stalker. I like Stalker the movie. It's a good movie. Doesn't really count.
I don't watch movies, as you know.
This was an old movie. You might watch it. It's Russian. You love Russians.
I like the Russian national anthem.
So you sing it with me, Jotty. Close enough.
See, that's a tune you can get behind. That's a tune that pumps me up. I mean, compare that to fucking God Save the King. Blah 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 blah. Where's the punch?
That's Parliament.
Where's the stirring energy?
This is a no stir peanut butter.
Anyway, Fox D gives $5 and says, "I think I'm too old for Souls likes. 12-year-old me who tried over and over to beat Mike Tyson in Punch Out would love Elden Ring. Old me, less so."
Even at 29, I was kind of like, oh, you know what? Maybe it's just time I retire from these things. But like you said, played another Crab's Treasure. Seems to have reignited it a little.
I got into Dark Souls late, as I said. Like I was replaying Bloodborne relatively recently in my crotchety 30s. Maybe all the kids these days are into speedrunning and shit. Maybe that's what they're trying to cater to, like the ultra high difficulty, ultra challenge streaming set.
Maybe we've just overdone it. Marty, you, I imagine, have taken in far less Souls likes than we have. How do you feel about your relationship with them? You probably have the healthier relationship with them.
My whole thing is I don't think I like the Souls-like genre. I think I like FromSoft games. I think when I see Liza P, when I see like Lords of the Fallen, even the ones that are like relatively praised, I look at them and I'm like, well, that's not what like you guys don't. You mentioned earlier, you don't get the thing I like about these games, and the difficulty isn't the thing I like about these games.
Yeah.
I think they're I like their worlds. You know what I like? Their sense of place. These other games don't give me a sense of place.
There you go again. Benjamin Street, member for 3 months in tip jar. Thank you very much. Tsunami Dusha gives $20 and says nothing. Thank you. And then Danny123451 gives 20 English pounds and says the Elden Ring DLC really isn't any harder than the base game. If something's too tough, go explore and come back when you're stronger. On top of that, you go in with an end game character who will be much better prepared. Well, except you don't, do you? From what I've heard, everyone gets evened out.
Go in with an end game character will be much better prepared. I mean, I have no actual numbers on the thing, but again, allegedly, if you go in with new game and new game plus, you're kind of boning yourself.
Yeah.
So now you have to wonder: do I level a whole new character, or So, but then that just goes back to my whole thing of From Software doesn't like to talk to the player much, and sometimes it's not for the best.
Also, it is hard for me, and this isn't against Danny or anyone in the chat who's currently saying it. Whenever anyone says this game isn't hard, my first thought is to disregard them, because that is such a in the eye of the beholder thing. Like, that is just not that's like not an across the board thing. If you say the game isn't hard, the game's not hard for you, that's fine. Yeah. The game could totally not be hard for you, but that is not you can't look at it and be like, "What? It's not hard. I don't know why anyone's having trouble with it." Like, that's not how difficulty in games work.
I remember making this joke when I was reviewing Dark Souls. It was like, it's full of people saying, "Oh, that game's not hard at all, as long as you know to pick up the such and such ring that's behind 2 hidden walls in a secret area and currently on fire." Mm-hmm. Of course, it's easy if you know how.
That just seems
knowing how that's the hard part.
Yeah.
That just seems like the other extreme, isn't it? Someone saying a game is too easy is the same thing as someone saying it's too hard. Neither really has any credence.
No one really has. No. Yeah, it's like when you go online and search for problems, search for solutions to problems with your hardware, and the only reply is like 2 weeks later, someone saying, "Well, my video card does it all right." You're not helping.
Is it broke? Yeah.
You're not helping, asshole.
Yeah.
Dr. Theo gives $2 and says, "Thoughts on Geometry Dash?" Those sure are 2 words, Dr. Theo. 2 words that have been put together.
I think that's like a big popular, like almost like a Flappy Birdie endless runner kind of thing that I think Jack said his kids are obsessed with, I want to say.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's
all I know about it. Oh, there you go.
If you want a little something like that feeling of hitting your wall and kind of excitement, good rhythm and whatnot, but you don't have too much time to devote, or you're stuck at the doctor's office and need a Souls-like, play you some Geometry Dash. Jesus Christ. My cortisol.
I'm stuck at the doctor's and I need myself they're going to take my appendix out, but I need to get that recursive.
Let me stress myself out before the surgery. Yeah. Let me get my blood pressure up as a joke.
Man, I'm really bored in this MRI machine. I'm just going to get my phone out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Don't bring your phone into an MRI machine.
Yeah. But that's a good question then, because traditionally that is a very hard game. Same as for what is it, Kaizo Mario? Or whatever.
That's that.
Well,
those Mario.
Kaizo, I Want to Be the Guy, that sort of thing. That was always like troll games. That was like the precursor to troll games made for streamers to yell at on stream.
I don't know. Moves like a duck.
Is there a game called Moves Like a Duck? Or are you saying if it looks like a duck and moves like a duck?
If it moves like a duck, Elden Ring, is it a troll game?
There's trolls.
There's
a whole valley filled with trolls in that game.
There's trolls, yeah.
Chef Roller gives $5 and says, "My biggest complaint about FromSoft is that you can't critique the games without fans dismissing criticisms with mad 'cause bad. See the Elden Ring DLC reviews."
That is the best.
Yes.
Best gripe. Absolutely.
And yes, if you want a good example, scroll down and look at the comments of this on this very podcast after the VOD goes up.
It's again, it's when anything's hit a critical popularity. It's Star Wars, it's Game of Thrones, it's Star Trek, it's Doctor Who, it's anything. It's Zelda.
Kaiser Poster gives €5.99 and says, "FromSoft is trying to make Nintendo hard games just for the sake of being hard." Well, I'm not sure that's a valid argument, Kaiser Poster. Because, maybe they are. And if they are, so what?
Oh, Nintendo hard, like NES hard. Sorry, I thought.
Yeah,
I was thinking like the back end of the Mario games. Like the last 30 levels you unlock after beating the main game, where they finally just take it all out on you.
Yeah, we've removed all floor. There is no floor anymore. Yeah,
the sensors levels. But I don't think it's for the sake of being hard. But now we're arguing what intent, right? For anyone who is obsessed with Miyazaki's history, I've told this story many times. It was a snowy day. They were trying to drive their cars up a hill, but there was no way to actually gain any traction, so they had to rely on the cars behind them to push them up the hill and over and that's where he's like, oh, that's the sort of cooperative mechanic I want to make, which makes you think he's a little sick because one dude would be stuck in the end.
Sure.
Yeah.
Also, you saying that story and being like, I've told this many times, I thought you were going to insert yourself in the story. I was on a road trip.
I was with
just outside of Kyoto.
He said, push the car. I couldn't do it.
He said, try finger butthole, and it worked.
Oh, no. In a swamp.
Danny123451 comes back with £5 and says, also, I would argue that Sekiro is the hardest of the FromSoft games, including the recent Elden Ring DLC.
That's the one I forgot to bring up.
I'm sure Sekiro was the hardest one for you because it was the one that played the least like the games you were used to. The games that you found easy because you were used to them.
Yeah, that's the one I was wanting to bring up earlier, where Sekiro, a lot of people were thrown off by it, but they kind of left without. They left in a huff without saying difficulty. They were just like, it's just not how I want to play, and we kind of accepted that. So, that could have well happened here. It's just not how I want to play. Okay, valid. Simple.
Iron Patriot 215 gives $5 and says, there's a reason I've beaten Stranger of Paradise in its entirety in the time it took me to beat Margit in Elden Ring.
Because you wanted to embrace chaos.
Man, you kind of suck, Iron Patriot 215. Stranger of Paradise is a really long game. Even I beat Margit.
Wait, which one's Margit?
That's the first boss.
He comes out.
Fell Omen.
Well, he comes back later, but I've also beaten him then.
And then I don't know.
I assume they meant Margit, right at the front gate of the castle.
The first one, the foul tarnish, that one.
Yeah, that guy.
I love him.
He's
I'm really excited to play this Stranger of Paradise game. Did you review Stranger of Paradise, Yahtzee?
Yeah, that's the Final Fantasy one, right?
Yeah. Did you like it? I'm gonna assume no.
Not really.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna assume not.
Red Bull 42. Can I just put that game on easy?
Yeah, whatever. Go nuts. Red Dwarf 42 goes 4.99 and says, this ghost train slander must stop. Jungle Cruise and It's a Small World are delightful rides.
Agreed.
Those aren't ghost trains, Red Dwarf 42.
What? You
Jungle
sit there
Cruise...
and the stuff happens around you.
Yeah, Jungle Cruise is like a boat ride where you have a funny dude telling you stories about the things you look at. And It's a Small World is hell on earth.
I thought literally those were what you were describing when you described ghost train rides, where you just sit there and the things happen at you.
No, I was specifically referring to ghost trains.
No one knows what those are. Is that a British thing?
Are you talking about like haunted hay rides?
The Haunted Mansion in Disneyland, to continue the comparison, is a ghost train.
Right. Is it an aesthetic thing?
Is it an aesthetic? Yeah, because like... Oh, it's an aesthetic thing.
So it's interchangeable, but it's aesthetic. Okay, I get you.
But when you're talking about games, you're not talking about aesthetic.
No, when I say ghost train ride, when I'm talking about games, I'm talking about something that's just a linear sequence of encounters that are all disconnected from each other, and that you just go through, like Uncharted.
Oh, okay, I get you. Kind of.
And earlier, when I brought up ghost trains, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about ghost trains as an aesthetic, how they've got scary ghosts in them.
Yeah, so this is why we make our own words instead of repurposing.
Can we move on now?
I'm sorry. Yes. Oh, it's fine.
I guess I just like ghost trains as a concept.
And boats.
And boats.
Denmark. Sorry to keep you waiting. Denmark gives $5 and says, I think it's too hard when it lasts for more than 4 hours. And he could be referring to priapisms there, I think is the joke. Leonard Bloom gives €5 and says, Yahtzee, what would you do if Dan Olsen made a 2-hour video essay about you, which includes a 1 to 12 scale diorama of your office? Yeah, I saw that. Bit weird, wasn't it? But I think the point of that video that I think goes over some people's heads is that it's more a video about Dan Olsen than it is a video about the Angry Video Game Nerd. Yeah?
You would watch that. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't watched it yet. No, it's in my queue.
Yeah, he just talks about the Angry Video Game Nerd for 2 hours, but in the end he sort of brings it back to himself and his own relationship with the Angry Video Game Nerd and how it's led to a sort of self-reflection on his part.
We should all do that. Oh.
I mean, it's not like his Nostalgia Critic video, which was just talking shit about the dude for 2 hours. Anyway, Gil on Yetic, member for 7 months in tip jar. Thank you very much. And TSP gives $5. Says that 9 Souls boss talked about was the one boss so far that I hit a wall with as well. Finally got past it last night. Well, la-di-da. Yeah, probably if I got time, I might. So I think I've only gotten as far as the 3rd phase 2 or 3 times so far.
Imagine
I'm sure
putting it on easy, getting through it in one go, and then just putting the difficulty back up to where you wanted it. Imagine how good
I would know I'd done that.
You can lie to yourself.
That's a funny thing because it's the same thing with puzzle games where people would sooner walk away from the whole thing than look up for the solution for the one and keep going.
Yeah. I feel like it's got to, I mean, if I just hammer away at it, I got to get through it eventually. Because I can basically do the first phase without losing any health at all. And presumably after enough time, I can do the same thing with the second phase. Because, I'm recognizing the patterns. Fungus Finder gives $2. It says, hard can be fun. Frustration, not so much. I don't know, Fungus Finder, because as I was saying, part of the fun of the challenge in Dark Souls when I was into it was that you do get frustrated, but then you want to, that sort of makes you more motivated to a certain extent. And when you finally beat the boss, there's a tremendous feeling of relief, which is then undercut because psych, the boss has another health bar, ha ha ha, and then you hate the game and want it to die.
But if you overcome that, the catharsis doubles, and this is how masochists think.
There you go. Fox D gives $5. Says, if a game with a story at a difficulty setting, I'll play the whole thing on baby's first video game without shame. Give me the story I paid for. Well, perhaps we're after different things, Fox D. Everyone plays games for different reasons.
If they have a little thing that says recommended by developer, that's the one. If it's the hardest difficulty, the easiest one, the one that says recommended by developer, that's the one I go for.
I don't know. There's I read a textbook on video game design a while back, which mentioned that there are multiple different motivations for playing games. Oh. And it kind of depends on what your personal preference is. Some people play games to 100% everything. Some people play games just to get through the story, to see the story end. Some people play games as a personal challenge.
Yeah, I'm fully admit I'm very weird. I get no satisfaction out of overcoming an obstacle in a game. I feel nothing. I feel no different from before I got to a boss than to after I beat the boss.
If that picks up a chick at the bar, I'd be more convinced.
Yeah.
Esports maybe,
Yeah.
Esports.
I get excited when I know stuff at pub trivia.
So where does the appeal? Where does the appeal of playing games come from for you then?
I like hanging out in a cool little digital world, wandering around, meeting weird little critters.
A sense of place.
There you go.
Because his
sense of place.
Closet's broken.
That's the other one.
Yeah.
That's the other motivation. Alex Armstrong gives $2. Oh shit.
Oh,
sorry. The super chat's just updated and everything scrolled down all of a sudden, so I had to scroll back up. Alex Armstrong gives $2 and says, "What about achievements via campaign difficulty? I have never given shit one about getting all the achievements that a game has. I know some people do. That's why I put achievements in my game, because I know it appeals to some people. But that's not my primary motivation." Thoughts?
Oh yeah, I haven't cared about achievements in probably 15 years.
Didn't we have an episode where we talked about completionism? If it lends itself to that, I'm down for it. Like a lot of Metroidvanias, a lot of collectathons, you almost naturally get to 95%, and then you go a little further for that last 5%. I'm sure Tinykin. It's great stuff. Mm-hmm. If it's get all the feathers in Assassin's Creed, I don't care. I don't care about you. Not like that. Very Steven Spielberg, where he's 3 takes, and Matt Damon asked him, I could do that a little better. It's yeah, you could do that 5% better, or I could move on and just get a kick-ass shot.
Yeah.
So just mainlining the kick-assness. I am the enthusiast junkie.
Michael Rich 727 gives $5 and says, "Not sure if this has been asked, but has difficulty led you to not finishing a game? For me, I didn't beat Returnal. I'll get back to it one day." I would argue that difficulty is the only reason one doesn't finish a game, Michael Rich 727. Either the game is too difficult to beat, or too difficult to give a shit about beating.
Oh, this guy and his wording.
Sure,
yeah. If it becomes difficult to care about,
Yeah, plenty of games I've sort of been well, not for me.
Yeah. Palash T gives 4.99 and says, the way I see with Souls likes, if it exists in the game, I'm using it. The game's pulling BS moves against me. Why can't I do the same to them?
Exactly. Ring a bell and get all your rats in there. Me and my rat boys fighting a boss. Feels great.
Say it does feel weird. Every now and again, there's a boss with a move that kind of reads your input, and I'll go, ooh. It's fine. It just still, ooh, you know?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, what chance does that give you? I mean, unless you can read their tells at the same pace.
If I can feint it, I'm okay with it. I think some of them you can kind of set off with your own pattern.
I feel
movement.
like feinting is one of the big go-to tricks these like spaz out newfangled ultra hard Elden Ring bosses have.
Yeah.
They always like hold the attack just long enough that you like to psych you out and make you press parry too early.
If you can feint it, there are some double standards, like how many bosses have these massive drumstick weapons that clip through walls, but my wrist cracks immediately as soon as I touch the freaking brick.
Yeah.
You know, all's fair. It's just not equal.
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, thoughts on games that mock you for cheating or skipping hard bits, like Postal Games calling you sissy or Splosion Man forcing you to wear a tutu.
Oh, very much of a time, right?
Yeah, I think that was certainly part of the identity of I Want to Be the Guy. Was that if you chose to play on easy mode, your character would wear a little frilly red bow on their hair. But you know, that game was like self-identifying as an unfair game.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Being proud of gamers not being able to get through your game is like a professor proud that students can't get through their course.
No, you know, it's like a writer proud that nobody predicted their plot twist because they made it impossible to predict.
Oof.
It's just being an asshole, frankly.
Yeah, it feels like that's fallen out of vogue, right? Of the like Wolfenstein had the difficulty options, and the one face had like the little pacifier. BJ Blazkowicz was sucking on, or Metal Gear Solid 5 had the chicken hat for easy mode.
Old Hunter 77 gives $5 and says Souls likes getting to where open world was a couple of years ago. More and more of it with diminishing returns. Me, a fellow burnt out Souls fan. Yeah, and then when the Souls like go open world, where does that leave you?
So if it's hitting the trend from a few years ago, does that mean that the next trend is going to be like a Souls like extraction shooter? That's what FromSoft's going to make next.
Oh Christ!
God, I think I've seen that actually.
Oh no.
If anything, they're going almost like Souls like ghost train rides. Like Flintlock came through. It was a lot. It was more dynamic. Like the movement seems to be where they're focusing on now. The new Souls like makers, where they do actually add more platforming, because historically, God, Souls games are horrible for the platforming.
Indie's been very big on traversal lately with your Jet Set Radio knockoffs and your grappling, all your games with grappling hooks.
Yeah.
Old Hunter 77. Oh, just did that one. Tommy Salty gives 10 PLNs and says, hard, mix, no true Scotsman, and Wojtek the Bear.
Oh, shout out to Wojtek. I hope Wojtek's
good old Wojtek.
Yeah. It's sort of that, isn't it? No true Souls player right now.
Yeah. You're not a real Elden Ring player if you summon help. Blank, member for 6 months in the Green Gang, says, Yahtzee, any detective puzzlers too hard for you? No, I'm smart.
It should be Lorelei eventually.
No, that's not really a detective puzzler. That's just a puzzler.
See, that's what I was getting at. In the same way that people are going, it's difficult. It's a different kind of difficult. That is a type of puzzle that doesn't appeal to me.
I wonder, because I was playing the shit out of Cryptmaster last week, which I really enjoy. And I wonder how hard other people find it, because all the challenges based around word puzzles and Hangman. And
that's something you admittedly are very good at and you engage with a lot.
I've got a very big vocabulary and I'm very good at the Wordle. I know, because Wordlebot tells me so.
Yeah, I think people are just wired in different ways. Like I got through Lorelei and the Laser Eyes relatively easily, but then something like Baba Is You, I hit a point where I'm like, my brain doesn't have that wrinkle to like understand these sort of grammar problems you're asking me.
Well, yeah, like of I was tearing down my own walls trying to solve some of Animal Wells puzzles, right? But with
yeah.
Lorelai going like, "Hey, flip to page 5 so you can see the Roman numerals." I was like, "Nah, I'm okay."
Kurt Holstein gives $5 and says, speaking of variety in From Software games, they should bring back Metal Wolf Chaos. Some of the dumbest stuff ever made into a game, and God bless it. Yes, that's the game where you play as the President of the United States piloting a mech.
Yes.
And the main villain is the Vice President of the United States. Just imagine Joe Biden and Kamala Harris going at it in giant robots against the background of fluttering American flags.
Jesus. Look at that. That's great.
Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, by the way, I made my first donos into 3-parters because $2 are 50 car, $5 are 150 car, and $10 are only 200 car. The max is 500 for 350 car. All right, you don't have to justify yourself to us. You don't have to justify yourself to us, Dr. Theo.
Justify yourself to your God. That's the only one.
I believe in Dr. Theo. If I could give you a coupon, I would.
Alex Armstrong gives $5 and says, there's also people who play games with new control schemes to increase challenge, like that one dude who played Dark Souls on a Guitar Hero controller. Well, that dude was just mad.
Is anyone watching Moon's level 1 playthrough? It's like any chatters watching this chat of a balded man going on a level 1 playthrough. I think he's maxed out his weapon, but yeah, no leveling into anything. It took him like 800 tries, I think, to get through the dancing lion boss. Go into that stream, Marty, you will have instant heart palpitations.
Hey, if you content creators out there can come up with new ideas for challenge runs, new interesting ideas, the world will beat a path to your door.
Yeah.
The people are like, everyone's trying. I was watching a video last night of someone trying to beat Half-Life without standing up. Just crouch walking the way through the whole thing.
What?
It's the hot thing with content these days. Challenge runs. We should think of something. Might even be thinking of something to put out in the relatively near future, but you didn't hear it from me, Tap Nose. Volta Domar gives $5 and says, Miyazaki will always just make the games he wants to make. They didn't expect Elden Ring to sell so much, and they don't expect future games to do so.
That's what I like about him,
well,
honestly.
More power to him.
I feel like his best stuff is when he's just like, I want to make something, a little weird game.
Weird Italian accent there. I wasn't expecting that from Michael Zaki. I want to make something.
I want to make it an Eldritch.
Did you say Michael Zaki?
Yeah, Michael Zaki. That's what Miyazaki is short for, Michael Zaki.
Okay. Mm-hmm. It's like how Sega pretends to be a Japanese company, even though they were founded in Hawaii.
There you go.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Wow. Sonic's Hawaii.
I mean, they're based in Japan now, but Sega is short for Service Games, and they were founded in Hawaii.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Yeah, no, I'm looking.
So everyone arguing over whether it should be Sega or Sega, they're all wrong. It should be Serga because it's Service Games.
Serga, imagine GIF and YIF. I'm looking forward to, like, I think it was Miyazaki saying he wanted to make a proper JRPG, but also just a co-op fantasy, and he feels he hasn't made one yet proper. I'm like, let the man cook. He's the epitome of line cook energy. Let him go.
There you go. Magnum Weight gives $5 and says, I feel like Another Crab's Treasure has a good idea. You can customize the difficulty, but it can still offer challenge. And then you can just pull out your fucking gat.
That's the best thing. That's catharsis right there.
Kill an octopus. Yeah, I was really big into Resident Evil 4, played a million times, and then every now and again I just go, I'm just going to play through the whole game with the Infinite Rocket Launcher, just as a treat for me.
You know, it's interesting too because I played Another Crab's Treasure until I kind of was like, I'm kind of done with the Soulsy part of it. Turned on the gun, got through the rest of the game. Great. It was those big giant crabs in the abyss that freaked me out. I was like, oh no.
Oh, I powered through that. I beat the whole game with no help. And eventually concluded it's not that hard for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Fill my ass up gives 100 Norwegian kroner and says, I feel Souls-like difficulty works best in waves. One brick wall followed by one soft blow. When it's 2 health bar suctioners in a row, it's just discouraging. You know what that made me think of was Resident Evil 4 again. Because I feel like that game just goes from boss fight to boss fight to boss fight without a break, especially early on.
Yeah.
Like you do the El Gigante fight, and then it's straight to the siege in the cabin, and it just feels like it's not letting up. But it's still one of my favorite games.
Sure. I mean, you could argue that's what the open world nature of it is. Like, just go have a walk.
Mm.
You build your own pace. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fungus Finder gives $2 and says, "Ha, yeah, it's just oldies who can't use 2 sticks. Sob."
I'm using 3-stick controllers, so
Hey,
yeah, my level.
Whoa.
I don't know where I'd put it. Right in the middle, like an N64 controller.
N64.
Weird little...
And control it with your penis? What?
Sure. Sure. You said that we're looking for challenge runs. There you go. I beat Elden Ring with my penis.
Oh wait, did you guys see the beat it with their mind? They have like a.
I saw some of that. Yeah.
Mind control.
That
system
got me worried. That's like Carrie using her mind to kill all those kids at the high school.
I don't know, because I'm like, how hard is? Can I just imagine victory? I'm owning.
just
hit one shot.
Yeah.
Just picturing skipping to the end credits like that one cheat code in Secret of Monkey Island.
See? There you go.
Danimita gives €5 and says, "Millennia aside, Elden Ring was probably one of the easiest From games." Oh, piss off with this shit. Sorry. One of the easiest From games with all the options they gave to lower the difficulty, summon tiers, NPCs, etc.
I will say, that second part, I will say I'm never going to rank the difficulty in the FromSoft games because I think that's kind of silly. I do think it ultimately had the most tools at the user's disposal. Whether or not they counteracted some of the bullshittery in some of the bosses that Yahtzee was talking about. Your mileage may vary.
Ryan Betts gives $5 and says, "Shout out to Marty for perfectly describing a no true soulsman conundrum 25 minutes into the stream. Now we can finally close the book on that gag."
I did it an hour ago? I don't
Apparently
remember
so.
that. I don't remember that at all.
You're a natural.
We did it. Thank you, Michael.
Crook D gives $10 and says, "I think the issue is the game is balanced around things like spirit ashes that the game expects you to use. So the bosses get extra mechanics and aggression, animation cancels, and delayed attacks."
Is it though?
YOR, bring your own rats.
Is it though? I don't know. Like, I don't know the code. Or is that just something we say?
I mean, when we talk about...
I'm trying to remember what Spirit Ash I ended up using the most. I think I fell back on, towards the end, the one where you just summon a copy of yourself.
Yeah,
the mimic Spirit Ash.
Yeah. I mean, I think when we were talking about how the bosses are extremely kind of sporadic and hyper aggressive, I think like you can very much equate, the game wants you to have a second person in there so that they can take aggro off you to give you a moment to breathe, and
Sure, but you can't use summons in like the jail guy.
Yeah. And you can still play the game offline.
The jail guy.
You can
summon humans in that fight. Yeah.
Coffee Koala gives $4.99 and says, "Donation for Yahtzee's brilliant national anthem recap. For those who are interested in Souls-likes, I really enjoyed No Rest for the Wicked." I never got around to starting that. I know Nick was banging on about it for a while.
It's in early access. I'll give it a try once it's.
That's right. That's why I didn't play it, because it was in early access.
I think they had like launch issues or something.
Yeah.
The Stalin DLRP gives $10 and says, "What vigor should I have then? 60 doesn't seem to be enough, which makes you wonder what I should have. And yeah, the New Game Plus issue and general input dropping issues isn't helping."
You need Erdtree fragments. Get them Erdtree fragments.
It also depends on, like, you need some good weaponry, and what else do you have? If anything, I think we should have opened up a helpline more so than Steam
reviews. Everything's gonna be get those Erdtree.
Yeah, because it's like my vigor's at 60, I'm still getting absolutely boned. Like, brother, what are you wearing? Mine's at 29, and people were judging that for being super low.
You're at level 260, and your vigor's at 29.
See, look, I'm being judged.
Where did you put your money? What are you spending your money on?
It's in faith, it's in endurance, it's in strength. I have a lot in mind. I don't know what that does. I wanted to recap, but I didn't want to go back on what old me was doing, because I trust him.
Yeah.
He had some reason to do it, so I believe
there was a method to your madness back then.
Yeah, but I mean, I've not been. If they punish me for it, I'll grind out some vigor, but so far I've been good.
Min Max, you scrub.
I'm the kind of guy that just wants all the stats. filled out. None
Except
of
for
this,
Vigor.
like, this is my faith run, except for Vigor. This is my faith build. This is my arcane. I want a character that by the end of it, he's got fire, he's shooting out lightning, and probably some arcane spell from his.
You're the true moderate tarnished.
A jack of all trades is a master of none.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Dr. Theo comes back with $5 and says, what is the difference between Souls-likes and Metroidvanias? They both feel very similar, and I want to figure out the differences besides difficulty. Well, for me, I think Souls-like refers more to surface-level mechanics, like bonfire-related stuff, and Metroidvania refers more to the way the world's laid out. And incidentally, I think Dark Souls is a Metroidvania. I think it's possible to be both.
Yes. But I don't think Super Metroid or Castlevania Symphony of the Night are a Souls-like.
No, although I admit the distinction is very... I mean, the distinction is very sort of nuanced. I mean, Castlevania has bonfires. Symphony of the Night has bonfires. It has enemies that respawn every time you go through an area.
Yeah.
I mean, where's the line? I mean, you just don't have to pick up your experience out from a bloodstain after you die.
Mm-hmm.
That is a major thing I consider in Souls-likes. Like that is a defining.
Right.
You are not a Souls-like unless you do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's why I actually, instead of seeking out more Souls-likes, I started seeking out more Metroidvania games because it's the map I enjoyed, the traversal, the ability gaining more so than just like hard boss. You know, that's why I think my favorite are the Metroidvanias. You know, because it's even less frustrating and ups the challenge even more to your brain.
Yeah, rest assured, I have no Metroidvania fatigue. I always love a nice Metroidvania. Coffee Koala gives £9.99 and says, spot on with that not that hard community analogy. I've recently dived back into WoW, and the Mythic Plus crowd are quick to be disparaging if you don't have every step of a 30-minute dungeon memorized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and fucking Dota audiences as well.
Yeah.
Fucking MOBA players.
We talked about that. The upper 5% of people who've played a thing, I feel like it's like both sides' opinions are almost like, these are not useful for me. Like, your opinion if you've put 10,000 hours into something, and your opinion if you've put 10 minutes into something. Like, neither one is super helpful to me.
Yeah. Because after 10,000 hours, you sort of fallen victim to Stockholm Syndrome at that point.
Yeah.
Danny123451 comes back with £5 and says, I didn't mean the game is not hard, I just meant compared to the base game, it's around the same difficulty.
You give Danny uncharitable voices.
That's not what Danny sounds like.
Do it again, but this time with the voice of someone you respect.
Gary Oldman.
Michael Caine.
Or Michael Caine.
You're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. I didn't mean the game's not hard. I just meant compared to the base game, it's around the same difficulty. Mate.
See? That's good there. Yeah. Compared to the base game, yeah, that's what I was feeling too. Expectations, it's pretty on par. It's pretty even. If anything, I feel the map is a little less, but as everyone has been saying, wait till you see it. It's more vertical, and you know me, I hate gravity, so we'll see. I might hate it more.
There's one thing I know about you. You hate gravity.
Fucking gravity. Where does it get off? Dr. Theo gives $5 and says, would custom levels count for the game's difficulty? It's why I brought up Geometry Dash, as the custom levels are stupidly hard and part of the game's ID. Well, if the stupidly hard games in Super Mario Maker count, then sure.
Yeah.
I think if you give people custom levels, someone's going to be doing that. Someone's going to be making obnoxiously hard levels, because what else can you do to stand out? Permafrosty79, member for 2 months in tip jar. Thank you very much.
Frosty.
Fox D gives $5. There's a difference between playing a story game on Stupid Easy and playing a sports or simulation or strategy game where I'll challenge myself. Well, that gives us some insight in what sort of gameplay you're into, Fox D.
Yeah.
Subjectively.
Yeah, everyone has their own mile markers.
Yeah, you can almost say I play for it to get easy. I remember NFL Street 2. I didn't apply good stats on everyone. I just made one big thick boy, and I just have him run a reverse fake every time. It's the easiest thing, but I got to see the story. I got to go against Exhibit in the end. You know, it's great.
Yeah, we know you like your thick boys.
You got to see Exhibit in the end?
Yeah, I guess he's a boss.
The boss of
We could
football.
consider he's the boss of football.
John Connor gives 5 Canadian and says, I've felt Elden Ring bosses have been bullshit before, but getting over that and beating them is quintessential to the sense of accomplishment.
I suppose. I don't know. I think what we have to learn to accept is that frustrations aren't universal, and also senses of achievement are not universal. So
When have we proved ourselves enough? When, like,
Mom says
I picture fucking Link from Zelda asking that question after the 15th dungeon run by the ancients. Like, how do you want this motherfucker dead or what? How many times are you gonna make me prove this shit?
it's on you to be enough, you know? It's on you.
The Hot Fish gives 4.99 and says, as a game design student, this is fascinating. Is the DLC hard because the bosses are actually too hard or because of content density and pacing? Well, you have to ask someone who played it. And that's not me.
A little bit of both. And again, I think some of the difficulty might stem from ignoring some of those new mechanics and systems that I really highly suggest you do not ignore if you want you're going to get a little bit easier.
Well, anyway, Qster gives $10 and says, has there been a Souls-like boss that made you feel bad for making it too easy? For example, used the Spectre on the Archbishop in Lies of P, which trivialized the fight and sucked out the satisfaction.
Every once in a while, you'll get to a boss that just kind of glitches out and you are able to cheese your way through it. I never feel bad. I'm just like, oh, this one's for me.
No,
there'll be plenty of ones that are pain in the ass.
That happened with me with the final boss of Sultan Sanctuary, as I recall. I got glitched into a wall, and my weapon was long enough that I could hit him, but he couldn't hit me. So I was like, you know what? I'll fucking take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's your dodgy code that made this happen, game. You only got yourself to blame.
Yeah, that's how I take it. Like, if you didn't want me to use this stuff, you could easily just lock me in a nice circular room with a boss, no tools, no nothing. That's what you're about. So, too easy. But I also understand, because who was it? What's that one boss in Dark Souls 1 where you can just run away and they'll grab the cliff and then you spank their hand and they fall?
The Ceaseless Discharge.
Yeah. Like, if that was really fun. But if every boss was like that probably wouldn't be a fun experience overall.
A little trick boss.
Yeah. I think the point with that is that the Ceaseless Discharge, if you go into the lore, is a character you're supposed to feel sorry for.
You're supposed to feel sorry for, like, everyone.
Yeah, him in particular, though. And then you can just cheese him, and that just sort of makes you go, oh my god, you were so pathetic, Ceaseless Discharge.
Yeah, no.
Why did you even show up for work today, you poor sad sack? He's like the he's like the Eeyore of all the bosses in Dark Souls.
Oh, now I feel bad for killing him.
Well, why'd you put him down then? No,
he's ceaseless. He's not gonna stop.
Fair. My joy comes from actually knowing that these bosses do give people a lot of problems, and I'll cheese it or trivialize it in some way. So it's a different perspective. Like Lies of P near the end, some of those bosses, God, they put up crazy fights, and I couldn't do it with the sword I had. So I finally just grabbed the biggest. It's this weird axe that's like hands, big handy weapon thing, and I just maxed that thing out, and it was just stagger
big old hand
over
axe.
and over. Nothing could sit to it. I was like, oh, this is great. Yeah.
Fungus Finding is $5. It says Cryptmaster has some extra puzzles that don't matter for the ending, but are still insanely hard. What does that take away from the game? Nothing. Okay. No one's arguing with you there, Fungus Finder. We're not talking about like optional challenges here.
If it's not spicy enough for you and they provide nipple clamps, you want to put them on, I'll go for it.
There you
nipple
go.
Clamps.
Lady Luminous, member for 4 months in ad-free podcasts. There's what is the easy Souls like? Crab's Treasure, Hollow Knight. Is there such a thing as an easy Souls like?
Hollow Knight is definitely not the easy. Whatever one it is, Hollow Knight is not the answer.
No. I'd say right now, Crab's Treasure.
That's probably a good gateway Souls like. Although if you're into like Souls likes, as I said, going back to Demon Souls can feel like they go pretty easy on you.
Yeah, everyone seems a little bit slower in Demon Souls.
Yeah. Also, they hadn't yet figured out to counter bait the attack, dodge behind them, stab them in the bum.
Mm.
Liam Omega gives $2 and says, "Has the Okamura fight in Persona 5
I fucking hate
Royal
that. I hate that.
been brought up yet?" Well,
Worst
not.
fight ever.
What is
We
it?
almost got through a whole podcast without Marty talking about Persona there, Liam Omega.
Well, you asked him about Persona Gold earlier.
Oh,
yeah.
so I
You were the
did.
one who brought it
All right. Sorry.
You monster.
Guess that was my fault then.
We've talked about this boss fight before about how the fight is literally easier on a harder difficulty than it is on an easier difficulty because of the damage you can deal, and it's like it's like a puzzle fight that it's a real pain in the ass puzzle, and it's just a real shit boss. And I'm happy that man is dead. I'm sad that his daughter is now an orphan, but I'm happy he's dead.
Holy shit! Nureddin just gifted 50 memberships in the chat.
Ooh, look at that. All the greens. Welcome. Some of you,
Crazy.
I know you saw the title. This is your first time here. Welcome. Enjoy. You don't deserve those. No, we love you too.
You don't deserve those. They belong in a museum.
No, you don't deserve us, but we do these podcasts anyway. Look grateful. The Keeper of Chaos gives $2 and says, "Hardest FromSoft boss, Zineda from Armored Core Last Raven."
Oh,
Sorry,
that was
Ace
a
Combat. Sorry, Animal Crossing. Sorry.
Assetto Corsa, etc.
Yeah, I feel like FromSoft's actual hardest games are the ones that people don't talk about, like the ones that aren't the Demon Souls, Dark Souls trilogy, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Armored Core, Elden Ring. Like their hardest games are their like real jank fest. Your King's Fields, your Echo Knights, your Adventures of Cookies and Cream, because you got to use both sticks at the same time.
Yeah,
it's two different characters. Most games you have to use both sticks at the same time.
Was that before Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons?
It was. It was a first year PS2 game. I believe it came out in 2000 or 2001.
Man, I thought Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons was original.
Nah, this one you got two bunnies. One's called Cookies. One's called Cream. Just opposite sides of the screen. What a game!
Isn't there a bunny called Cream in the Sonic canon as well?
There are, yeah. Cream is actually Japanese for bunny.
Oh,
originated in Hawaii. No, I made that up. That's a lie.
I knew you were lying.
Sorry.
As soon as you spoke,
it wasn't supposed to be a truthful lie. We were all supposed to know I was lying.
The difficulty of this lie was too much for me.
Someone
it's a bad lie.
Someone figure out the logical through line from Cream to Lagomorphs.
A Lagomorph? The fuck does that mean?
That's the genus of animals that rabbits fall into.
Oh.
That doesn't sound cute.
Anyway. Jules Rowe gives €5 and says, "For me, the biggest difficulty in Elden Ring are big bosses with AoEs and camera issues where the camera clips inside them and I can't follow what I'm doing."
It's a lot better than it used to be, I'll tell you what, but yeah.
Yeah, there's some bosses in Dark Souls where deactivating the camera lock-on actually helps. Like, I think the Iron Giant is easier with the lock-on turned off.
Yeah.
Iron Golem, I should say. Iron Giant's the other thing.
The hit film.
Yeah.
Vin Diesel.
And also from the hit game Multiversus.
Oh, no.
You heard me so.
Danny123451 comes back with £5 and says, "Yahtzee, how did you know I sound like that? Are you following me?"
Ruby, the size of a pomegranate.
God.
A really bad Michael Caine. It's not good.
So good.
Blue McDee's Nuts gives $2 and says, "Persona 5 brought up by Yards, as they say, no true Scotsman." That's not no true Scotsman fallacy.
Come on.
Blue McDee's Nuts. What are you on
doing? Make yourself look like a fool here, not knowing those classic fallacies.
It took you like 5 podcasts. Blue gets 4 more.
I still don't. Someone said I got one earlier. I do not remember that. I don't think I did.
But you did one with intent and you got it through.
With zero confidence whatsoever.
And finally, the final super chat, Conte gives €2 to say, "I've got balls of steel."
Oh, was that a little Duke?
Nukem and a little like Paul McCartney there.
And yeah, I was trying to do my Duke voice, but it sort of bottomed out on me. Hang on. I've got balls of steel. Now I've lost it.
John St. John. What a man.
Hey, John, I've got balls of steel.
Don't have time to play with myself.
Oh no. We're not.
Right,
See, and you were
well.
worried. We made it.
There we go. That's all the super chats. Now I'm really hungry and want my lunch. So I guess we'll wrap things up. Thanks for listening to the Windbreakers podcast, and thanks for not being twats in the comments under the VOD, as I know you won't be. Wondering how many people now feel guilty I've said that. I was Yahtzee Crucial. I was joined by Frost and Marty, as usual, and adorable, adorable Toffee resting on my arm.
I thought you were going to say adorable, adorable Eric.
Well, he's adorable too. Adorable, adorable Eric producing from the background as always. Remember, we've got lovely Second Wind content coming every day this week, as always. I've got my Fully Ramblematic coming out on Wednesday. This will be a roundup of Summer Game Fest announcements and trailers as a sort of spiritual successor to my E3 roundups. Because it happened around the same time as E3 usually did, so fuck it. And,
did you talk about Slitterhead?
No, because
wait for a little addendum?
No, I wanted to keep it to killing hype. And Slitterhead is actually something I feel like might be good.
Yeah.
Question. You like to offset the hype because you can't have too much of a good thing. If everyone suddenly becomes cynical, will you be the one that brings the hype?
When everyone's cynical, no one will be.
Exactly. So you'll have to be the happy one then.
No, I'm going to make everyone cynical so that I can feel like I can finally make friends as an adult.
Go a book club or something, you know?
A very cynical book club.
Yeah, or they just read like, Mein Kampf and shake their head so everyone walking by knows they disagree.
Oh. That's what we'll
Can
do
you believe this?
the whole time.
Oh my god.
Yes, so that's Fully Ramblematic. Don't forget Yahtzee Tries on Wednesday, as always, my weekly stream of whatever game I feel like streaming. And I don't have a semi-randomatic this week, so that'll be it from me, and except for my appearance in Adventurers Nigh on Saturday, as usual. What else we got coming up this week?
Stream wise, I'll be back with Casey in just a little over an hour for a sponsored stream of Void Rot. Speaking of 2D action platformers that have a Souls-like twist to them. That was a game we tried to stream last week, but YouTube was down right when we went to stream. So we'll be making good on that in an hour. And then the Hidden Gems crew will be back later tonight, normal time. And all the normal pods and everything. And Jack and I will be back later on in the week with Elden Ring as well. That might be Thursday, might be Friday. We're still figuring that out, but we will let everyone know.
Okay. Frost, anything you want to plug?
I've got a new cold take that just came out, nice and fresh. Go watch that. Talking about the hottest game to hit Steam, Banana. Imagine. Go watch that.
Banana. Yeah. The hot. Is it hotter than? Is it the hottest banana-centric game since My Friend Pedro?
Oh, that's
easily. I mean, it's like number 1, number 2 on Steam charts right now.
It's the biggest banana game since Donkey Kong Country 64.
And now I'm trying to think of other banana games.
Save that for Battle Masters.
Did they ever make like a Dole or a Chiquita, like branded Super Nintendo platformer?
Jesus, man. We're what? They're bringing freedom to South America.
No one take that idea. That's ours. We're making that game now.
Okay.
Anyway, BS Marsh sent in one final super chat for $2 saying, when everyone is cynical, Yahtzee can retire. No, that's when the real work starts, BS Marsh. That's when I start running for president.
Imagine. Not in this country. You weren't born here.
Well, everyone will be so cynical, they'll let anyone become president out of cynicism.
Should have been.
I said, well, they can't make things much fucking worse, they will say.
Great time.
All right, that'll be it from us. See you next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye, everyone.